This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah. And if I look tired, it is not a figment of your imagination. It is because I am launching Problem Solved Simple Habits for Complex Decisions. And today is launch day. I literally, I have my old book here and then literally keep forgetting to bring my new book up here. But it's the Problem Solved Simple Habits for Complex Decisions. It's got the maze on the front, and it is a huge conversation around boundaries, but not boundaries like you are thinking, right? Because if you followed my work for the last half decade or more, whatever it is, it's a lot about high conflict relationships and toxic relationships, okay? And there's this myth around toxic relationships that everybody who had a high conflict relationship had self-esteem issues or self-confidence issues. I do not believe this to be true after hundreds and thousands of conversations. What I do believe to be true is that toxic people are good manipulators and con artists. Okay. And within the conversation around high conflict relationships and toxic relationships, it's normal for us now to talk about boundaries. However, we are forgetting to talk about brain boundaries, which I think are the most important boundaries of all. We all know what, our internal world makes our external world, right? So if we cannot have boundaries within our own brain, it's hard to have boundaries within our life. And more importantly, if your brain already feels scrambled, then it's going to be much easier for a toxic person to manipulate you, gaslight you, trick you, get you off topic, all those sorts of things. Okay, so that's one of the main points of Problem Solved. You can see my new t-shirt. I got lots of Problem Solved t-shirts. Trying to decide which one's my favorite, but I do like this one. And Problem Solved, Problem Solved, Problem Solved. I'll stand up right here. You can see it. Now I'm in my podcast room, which is literally like a padded soundproof room. So there's not much room to go anywhere else. But okay, so let's chat spaghetti thinking. Okay. You talk to someone about making a decision about work, and they say something along the lines of, well, I was thinking about, talking to John in accounting, but if I do that, then my boss could maybe be upset about this. And, he told me I was up for a promotion, but I don't even know if I really want a promotion because my mom told me I should leave this job. And, but I don't know if my mom's right because she, just went through a breakup herself. And, she told me some stuff about my parenting that I don't I don't really agree with. So I don't know if I want to take her advice about her, work. Okay. I want you to hear how confusing that was. And also when I'm doing this on demonstrations and people's podcasts, they kind of start giggling because they go, oh yeah, that's how people talk. And I call it spaghetti thinking because it's like you take 20 problems or 20 noodles and you mix them up all together, and then you put that sauce on there, and then you try to get the biggest bite that you can possibly get and shove it all in your mouth, okay? And I have such compassion in this conversation because I see people and they are making life so hard on themselves. And it's not that they're lazy, but they're either spending time on the wrong problem or they are clumping so many problems together that they're already exhausted, or they are clumping so many problems together that they're here and then they're here and they're here and they're here. And then when it's time to solve one problem or take action in one area, it's really difficult to figure out which noodle to pull from the pile. And so if your brain feels like spaghetti, maybe all this, or maybe all this, or I don't know, if I do this and someone's going to be mad and I shouldn't do this and I should, okay. If your brain already feels like spaghetti, think how easy you would be to manipulate. Think how easy it is for a toxic person to come in and maneuver where he or she wants those noodles to go. And my first book, Becoming Toxic Person Proof, the most important part is the subtitle, Clear the Confusion and Learn to Trust Yourself. Now, problem solved. my t-shirt. Simple habits for complex decisions is again all about trusting yourself. It's relentless. I am relentlessly committed to one thing, making difficult concepts easier to understand so they become easier to implement so that your life becomes easier. I'm relentlessly committed to taking difficult concepts, putting them in easy terms so it's easier to understand so your life can be easier. Okay. And that's what I see these people in spaghetti thinking. It's really as if without brain boundaries, there's a lot of movement. Like, think how exhausting it was to even hear me talk about, well, maybe I'll do this. Or let's say you're trying to decide if you're going to break up with someone. Well, I was thinking about breaking up with them, but then this person says they're nice, but I don't know. They feel really like something feels off with me. And I don't really know if they're nice. And, but my mom said they were really great. I keep talking about mothers for some reason today. Probably because I've had to do a lot of mom duties for my kids today. But maybe I don't know if we do this, then I don't know, but my best friend said they're a great person, but then my other best friend said they were a terrible person, right? And you clump all these ideas and these problems together, and your thinking is all over the place, and it's exhausting. 77% of people are saying that they're in burnout right now. And I see so many people spending money, spending energy, spending time, overthinking, decision-making fatigue, and again, not lazy. It's like they're running around a racetrack, but not getting anywhere. And they are just vroom, 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 spending money and spending energy and spending up resources with gas, which is expensive now, and all that kind of stuff. And they're not getting anywhere. They're not getting where they want in their life. Okay. Good thing is it's very easy to fix. Okay. So in the book, Problem Solved, Simple Habits for Complex Decisions. Get it now? But when you talk about this, okay, so I talk about something called the magic question, which is, what problem are you trying to solve? And I call it the magic question because it gets us out of learned helplessness, right? If we had a situation in our life that we were like, oh, life is happening to me, I don't know what to do, right? It's like, okay, I believe in you. You're a problem solver. Like, our brains are problem solving machines. Okay, so what problem are you trying to solve? And people kind of stop and they think and they go, okay, the problem I'm trying to solve is decide whether I'm going to ask my boss for a promotion. Okay, the problem I'm trying to solve is figuring out how to make sure my boss understands the work I'm putting in. The problem I'm trying to solve is ensuring that my kid feels loved, even if I can't see them that weekend. The problem I'm trying to solve is to try to create, 10,000 more dollars so I can set it aside for more money in retirement. The problem, it doesn't matter. Okay, it's just asking that question to give yourself clarity. Okay. So when you ask that, this is where you get to spaghetti brain dump. Okay. And I've seen it over and over. Please, please, please do this. I just did a live with a girl who works in narcissistic recovery, and she talked about getting stuff out of your head and getting it on paper, right? If you leave it in your head, and I'm the worst about this, I really am. Like, I hate writing things down. I have ended up keeping notes in my phone, so that when I need something, I just like go to the notes in my phone. I'm like, okay, this is what I need to remember. This is what I need to do. Okay. So I realize this is hard. Okay. But if you have 10 minutes, you're waiting on your groceries to be delivered, 10 minutes, I'm waiting to pick up a kid, their baseball practice to finish, 10 minutes while you wait for your tea to boil. I don't know, but make time. Okay. More time, less stress. That is my goal for you. Take complicated issues, make them easier to understand so they become easy to implement so that your life is easier. Okay. So spaghetti dump, what problem you're trying to solve? Spaghetti dump it all out on paper. Okay. And it's probably going to sound like a jumbled mess. That's okay. Then I want you to take each sentence as if its own, like number 1, number 2, number 3. You're basically kind of creating a to-do list. Okay. My smart girls, smart guys love to-do lists. They're like, okay, check it off the box. Got this one. So dopamine hit. That can make us feel really good. Okay. So what problem you're trying to solve, you're going to spaghetti dump it all out on a piece of paper, 4, 5, 10 sentences, doesn't matter. And then all you have to do is take each sentence. First sentence, number 1. Second sentence, number 2. Third sentence, number 3. Fourth sentence, number 4. Okay. And some of those probably aren't really problems you're going to solve. But think about the difference when you look at a word scramble versus a to-do list. When you look at a word search, you're like, okay, where's this? I need to lose this. That looks confusing. Maybe this. Okay. It's meant to be, right? That's the point. That's the activity. But if we're scrambled in our lives and we're unsure of what decision to make in regards to relationships or careers or parenting or finances or the stock market or whatever you're trying to decide, clarity is the only answer. Clarity is the hope. And having those brain boundaries so that your brain begins to look more like a waffle square than a bowl of spaghetti. The ways this will change your life, I don't even have words for you. I promise, I promise, I promise it will make your life easier and better. I had a client read this chapter, and she had been asking a question about a very complicated situation about she had signed off on a contract. So she was stuck in this work situation. And when she had signed the contract for the work situation, there was a different boss. And then a new boss came in. Okay, so she's under contract. She can't leave. New boss comes in. She doesn't like the new boss. You can guess what happens from there, right? And so she's like, oh, I'm so confused about what to do about this boss. And then she's like, oh, okay. So the problem I'm really trying to solve is I can't remember what she said, but get my boss to, accept that I'm responsible for this one store. We'll say something like that. I can't remember what she said, but it was very clear, very hopeful, and most of all, it was within her control. When you're stuck in spaghetti thinking, it can feel like life is out of control. Like it feels like you're just all a scramble and there's nothing you can do. And I promise, there's almost always a creative solution. There's almost always a creative solution. But our brains do not help us in this. Our brains work against us. I do not know why God made our brains this way, but we tend to be kind of afraid of what happens if things change, and then unable to be afraid of what happens if things don't change. Okay, you've heard of the comfort zone. I don't know who called it the comfort zone because it's not comfortable, but our brains have this habit of like, okay, if something changes, if something doesn't change, oh, I'm used to that. And it's like, whoa. Unless everything's going well for you, we should be more afraid of what happens if things don't change. Okay. Likewise, in this conversation, our brains typically scramble. We take 20 problems and throw them all together and kind of mix them up as if they are one problem. And this is not a winning way to do life. It can make you susceptible to manipulation and to toxic relationships or being taken advantage of because you're already scrambled. Like if you're just in a room by yourself, you're scrambled. So then when a toxic person comes and tries to scramble you, you're already easy to scramble. And if you're already scrambled anyway, you're tired, right? The times I've been scrambled, and there have been plenty, the times I've been scrambled, they're exhausting. I'm exhausted, right? I'm running around or driving around a racetrack, boom, 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 burning energy, burning oil, burning money, burning time. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not solving any problems, but I'm doing a lot of work. And remember, my goal for you, difficult concepts, make them easier to understand so they become easy to implement and your life becomes easier, right? Driving around a racetrack, not going anywhere, not easy, not actually really close to like some racetracks. Not like I can hear them, but like, I don't know, never like been to a race. It's not a thing, but I like going somewhere, not going around in circles. I know you're shocked. But that simple concept of what problem are you trying to solve, dump it out on a paragraph of spaghetti. Okay. No right, no wrong. Just get your thoughts on paper. and then take each sentence and make it its own waffle square. Okay. If you're in a leadership position, checking my time. If you're in a leadership position, you will probably see someone else in spaghetti thinking before you see it in your own head. This is okay. This is normal. I'm actually terrible at foreign languages. I took French in high school, and I met my high school boyfriend in that class. And so it was the only C I ever made in high school. Like I was like talking to him instead of learning French. Ooh la la. Okay, so I was French kissing, not French learning. Anyway, so the not my best class, but I hear that when you learn foreign languages, it's easier to understand and like hear someone else speak it and understand what they're saying before you speak it. Okay, so if I'm learning French, first step is I'm going to be able to hear French and think, oh, this is what they're saying. Second step is me being able to speak French. Okay. So same way with spaghetti thinking. Once you kind of see it, you can't unsee it. And so you're going to go forward in your life for work and business, and you're going to be talking to someone. You're going to say, whoa, they are trapped in spaghetti thinking. Okay. And if you are in a position of leadership or in a close relationship with them, you may, if you choose to. The book outlines this. Lots of different ways to influence yourself and influence others, personally and professionally. Okay. And one of the big concepts you're going to see within this, I think it is soul crushing and soul stealing. I think if you see someone and they're maybe in spaghetti thinking and you kind of reach inside their brain and say, here, I'm smarter than you are, let me like take that and fix it for you, like super boundary issue for me. Big stop signs, I think it's really inappropriate, unless it's like a coaching session or like therapy session or like a boss situation where sometimes that it's like they're obviously asking, there's a power dynamic and that it's supposed to be that way, right? But on a normal basis, okay, if I'm addressing this, even as a leader, even as a boss, okay, to say, hey, what problem are you trying to solve? There's a spaghetti dump and you pick out some of those noodles. There's a noodle. Okay, so they're having an issue with Bob in accounting. Okay, they may need more money in their budget. Okay, they're worried about being off on time for their child's baseball game on Thursday. Okay, so they spaghetti dump. As you listen, you can start to pick out some of those waffle squares. And if I was in this situation, I'd say, what problem are you trying to solve? They spaghetti dump. And then you say, oh, I think I heard several things there. I heard several problems. Do you mind if I tell you back a couple of things that I heard? I want you to hear how respectful that is. I want you to hear how kind that is. And they have full permission. Okay. And no one likes a know-it-all, right? So some people in life, it's like they're a know-it-all and they're telling everybody what to do. And maybe your boss is like that. You're like, oh, they never listen to me. They just tell me what to do and it wasn't even the right problem. Okay. This is a big solution for that. What problem are you trying to solve? Listen. And then say, I really want to get clarity and make sure I heard you correctly. It sounds as if you said 4 or 5 problems. Can I tell you back a few problems that I heard from you? To hear how respectful that is. It's listening, it's kind, it's feedback, it's active listening. It's not taking over the problem yet. If you're a boss or someone, you might have to take over the problem, but it's giving it just a tiny step for clarity. It's 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 1 minute. Connection and clarity. Okay. So may I tell you what I heard and then list out 2 or 3 problems for them? If you do this, usually the person is going to have a huge light bulb and smile and say, yes, that's exactly the problems I'm trying to solve. Thank you so much, right? You've created that connection. It's great leadership technique, especially if you're leading young people in a work situation. Please try it. It's had fabulous results. Or if you're dealing with someone who's in a really confusing or complicated situation, okay? What problem are you trying to solve? Listen. Okay, it sounds like you were talking about 4 or 5 problems there. Can I pick out a few of those problems and tell you what I heard? May I? pick out some of your problems and tell you what I heard. Okay. And that also opens the other person's ears to hear. Okay. Just like we don't like when someone just says, oh, gosh, I can't believe you're even worried about this. Here's what you should do. Well, the answer's obvious. Like, here's what you should do, right? Other people's problems are always easier to solve because they're not emotionally connected to them. So within those, that's how to help create brain boundaries for other people. And if you're doing it solo, and again, I point that out to say it will be easier to see other people's spaghetti thinking rather than see your own spaghetti thinking. Just like when you learn a language, it's easier to hear French before you begin to speak French. Okay. So that's normal. Nothing's wrong, right? Just if you're using other people to learn, like use them in their best interest in a way to help them and be super respectful. So, but if you're doing it on your own, spaghetti dump, then list out sentence 1, sentence 2, sentence 3. And then the easiest thing, that's basically the way to create brain boundaries within your own thinking to make you much harder to manipulate. If you start to think in these terms of like, okay, what problem am I trying to solve? Maybe what problem am I really trying to solve, or who am I really trying to solve? And getting that clarity, I promise you'll be so much harder to manipulate. But if we don't have boundaries within our own thinking, we don't have boundaries within our own brains, we don't have boundaries within our own minds, then it's really hard to create those boundaries in our life. Okay, because what problem are you trying to solve? The problem you're trying to solve is probably not to be lonely and never have anyone else in your life again, obviously, which can feel really scary when you're setting those boundaries. You're like, oh gosh, I keep setting these boundaries. I'm not going to have anybody left, right? So start with brain boundaries, right? And really get that clarity and peace within your own head so you can become your own creative, independent problem solver. You can become your own powerful problem solver. And you're able to start making decisions based off that waffle thinking and that waffle decision-making process rather than making decisions through people pleasing or perfectionism. And people pleasers, I'm used to be the world's worst. People pleasers, the way they make a decision is, well, how do I not make you mad? Well, how do I not make you mad? Well, what decision do I need to make the least amount of people mad? Okay, it's a terrible way to make decisions. I want to say it out loud. It's as if we have this internal permission note we need everyone to sign off on, and that's how we make a decision. Let me talk to you about it and see if you'll sign my permission note. Let me talk to you about it and see if you'll sign my permission note. Let me talk to you about it and see if you'll sign my permission note. Okay. It's just a really hard way to get the life you want. It certainly didn't get me the life I wanted. Right. And then sometimes we have perfectionism, right? So it's like, okay, I'm happy to make a decision as soon as I figure out the right decision that's not going to have any negative consequences and there's no sense of rejection. I'm not going to look bad. And probably also not the way to get what you want, you know? And so in this process of creating brain boundaries and unraveling our thinking and figuring out simple ways to make complex decisions, forgive yourself, right? Like we were not taught how to make decisions in school. Even if we had really fabulous parents, they made decisions without the internet. The internet changed some things. Whatever process our parents did or did not teach us for making a decision, most of the time in that day and age, it was like, well, do it because I'm the parent. I said, like, that was how we made decisions as kids, right? That was the culture. Everyone did that, right? But even if you had parents who walked you through decision-making processes, well, they didn't have the internet. We now live in the information age. It has changed how we make a decision. And the beauty is within the spaghetti waffle plan that once I promise with single thing in my heart, if you can waffle it down and you can see, okay, one problem I'm trying to solve is how to get over guilt with my mother. Another problem I'm trying to solve is how to have a conversation with my boss. Another problem I'm trying to solve is getting over the fear of going after that promotion. I promise, now that you are in the information age, you will be able to come up with your own action plan. In the information age, your problem is not overanalysis paralysis and all that kind of stuff. It's that you never unravel the spaghetti. So you never get to the action plan or get to the solutions because you were like you didn't grow up with parents teaching you about the information age. They didn't know. Schools didn't know. This is like a new world. And 77% of people burn out, analysis paralysis, decision-making fatigue. We make 35,000 decisions a day. Decisions a day. I'm probably getting tired of saying that word. My tongue's like, we make 35,000 decisions a day, and no one ever taught us how to make a decision. And then we're people pleasing, like, oh, how do I not make you mad? Or how do I get this decision right? And then we feel like we're racing around a racetrack instead of moving forward and learning how to spaghetti, waffle, and then action your thinking processes and create those brain boundaries for yourself. Not only helps advance your career and personal relationships, but also protects you from toxic relationships. I promise. And it was actually the chapter in the book that I rewrote for a year. And the last person I sent it to was my high school English teacher. And she was like, Sarah, I hate this chapter. And I had rewritten it. Till finally, I'm very proud of the results and have had great feedback about it. But within this process, your problem is not that you don't know what to do. Your problem is that you haven't been taught how to take your thinking from spaghetti to waffles. And I hope that feels helpful and hopeful to you, because it's actually much easier than what you were currently trying to do. Over researching, worrying, just trying to figure it out, trying to plan for the future, trying to guess, right? It's much easier than that. Okay. So I hope this helped. I don't think I have any messages on this. I really hope this helped. Life is so much easier and so much better. You feel, people are always telling me to work less, and they really do. They're always like, you should like breathe and work less. And I'm like, I take naps all the time. I work out. I show up to my kids' stuff all the time. I go on dates with my husband. Like, I feel like I am resting. What's happening? And I really, truly think it is. I truly feel like I have more time than most people because I'm able to implement this process, and because I'm not wasting time solving the wrong problems or trying to figure out what I'm really thinking or what I'm really wanting to do. So I want that for you. I promise it is easier. Take a little practice, but it's much easier than what you're currently doing. And I explain it all in my new book, Problem Solved: Simple Habits for Complex Decisions. If you are just now here and you didn't see my shirt before, I'm very proud of my shirt. My hair looks like a mess. I'm going to have to do another launch day where I look put together. Probably not going to be today. And I have my son's tennis match later today too, of all the days. So anyway, but I really want your life to be easier, and so you don't feel like you're just going around the racetrack burning fuel. So I think the ebook is still 99 cents right now. This is day one of the launch day, and whether it's helping you get unstuck or helping someone else get unstuck, personally or professionally, there are examples of all of it. And I thank you for joining me on this concept of brain boundaries. Life is so much easier with those brain boundaries, I promise. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining me.